TRW here with Khyber rifles. Designed by Edward Feary, development by Bill Spitz. It's a map by Kevin Zucker, production by Keith Poulter. Obviously this came out in the Wargamer magazine number 34 in 1984. Issue number 34 in fall of 1984. Afghanistan and the Northwest Frontier have been aptly referred to as the 100-year imperial migraine by British historians. A mountainous region of subarctic winters and miserably hot summers, it is inhabited by a fierce and independent people. The British involvement in this land, and more specifically the Empire's military misadventures, are the subject of this issue's feature game. Nice little black and white line drawn map. Basically we have the Iranian plateau and Tehran all the way to Yarkand, China, down here British India, Amritsar. In the center we have the Khyber Pass, Kabul, Bamiyan, Mazar-e Sharif, Samarkand, labeled Turkestan up there, Karakoram Mountains. Alright, I went ahead and set up the first scenario. So in the back we have, I think, 8 scenarios. We have 8 scenarios. I just jumped right in with the first one, Defense of the Murjabi Outpost. Defense of the Murjabi Outpost, yeah. So right away, first of all, map setup. It shows a rectangle there with 1, the number 1 corresponding. This is map number 1. Map number 1 is listed in the, so the top left corner has number 1. I'm going top according to the orientation of the hex numbers, hex IDs, and this shows north top. Now, question is, I have no way of knowing. I have not figured out how to know for sure the orientation on the table to this map, right? Because if it's supposed to be the oblong or rectangle, I can't figure out which way to consider this. Now, there are problems here, and I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I expect very, 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 very little out of this game. It was not well received at all. Its reputation's never been rehabilitated, or its reputation's never been positive, I guess is another way of saying it. So I have to be very flexible here. So that's what I'm doing. I chose to read this to use the number 1 to be the orientation, because on the map the 1 is oriented this way like it is here, but if obviously the map is standing up, it's standing up on its short end, which is the opposite of the picture here. Okay, the reason why I'm doing that is that if that way's north, and if the British are there, then as they call them, the native tribesmen, so I'll just call them the natives. I'll call them natives or tribesmen. Native is too generic, so, well, tribesman is pretty generic too. Tribesmen. So, all right, native. Are they listed differently for different scenarios? Native forces, okay. Storming the Kalakar Pass, native forces, what are they called in each scenario? The burning of Dinistan, Native forces. Alright, I'll go with native forces. Alright, well actually it's native tribesmen in this particular scenario. Sorry, that was way too much explanation for a video. So the native tribesmen are said to come onto the board, or they're set up on, actually they don't come on the boards, they're set up along the southern and eastern map edges. Southern or eastern map edges. Well, since the British set up there, I was thinking I want the native tribesmen to come in farthest away. So that told me maybe that's eastern, southern. I have another force down here. Eastern, southern. If I look at the one, it's oriented this way. I don't know. It just made sense. Because otherwise, if I go... Well, first of all, if I lay it down, laid down on its long side, then I have no way of knowing which way is which. Oh, I know what. If you lay it down either long side, that means the tribesmen are coming in on a short, very, well, they're immediately on the British. That didn't make sense to me. So I'm orienting it this way, so the native tribesmen are as far away as possible, but I have no idea whether that's what was intended. Okay. So I mentioned the setup of the native tribesmen. I basically set up, I thought in terms of the main force, and my main leader is Shurat Khan. I'm just making him the main leader here. I'm making Shurat Khan the main native tribesman leader. I put him in the center here. Okay, these are his forces. There's another force right off the screen here. These are his forces. They are the main forces. I gave him a lieutenant. Actually, he has two lieutenants. He has Zami Khan and Muhammad Khan. So he has two lieutenants with his force. There's a small force up there under a Yaqub Khan. And then down here on the edge of this map, which is basically where this road, or trail, I should say, this trail goes off the map down here, off the screen. There's another force there under Mullah Khan. So basically three forces, main force up the center to basically get over basically as close to the objective through rough terrain as possible. But I'm going to send these two flank forces to see what they can do to maybe harass and maybe draw some fire off the British. Okay, so that's the native tribe. They will go first too. Let's talk about the British setup next. All right, the British setup here. Explain what I did. Part of this is British. Yes. All right, so these are the British forces. Again, inexplicable graphic, but these gray, absolutely incomprehensible splotches are buildings, clearly labeled building. Again, I think this might be messed up, you know, actually, what do you want to call it? A graphic screw up, but these are buildings. And I guess, well, first of all, British can set up within 5 hexes of any building, inclusive of the building. So basically that means like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out to here, kind of like this, and like this, and like this, and this, and around here like that. So you can set up anywhere here. I obviously went in, after looking at a few different alternatives, I went with a tight hedgehog formation. So what I did is, underneath here are 7 improved positions. For example, here's an improved position. So what I chose to do is I took the 7 improved positions, which cannot be set up on a building or a fort, so they can't be set up on any of these buildings here. What I did is I made a perimeter like this that incorporates either a building like that or an improved position. So using the buildings and the improved positions, I made a perimeter here. And then basically I have the main leader, who I have as Ogilvy here. He has 2 squads in the center as his kind of reserve right here. And otherwise he has a continuous perimeter. Now the reason is because the the native tribesmen have to win. They have two conditions to win. They have to control all the building hexes at the end of the game and prevent the British from exiting a number of forces off the south edge of the map. So in other words, the British player wins by either controlling at least 4 building hexes or by exiting 2 leaders and 8 infantry off the south map. So I don't think so. In my tight hedgehog, I'm giving up the idea of dashing for the south end of the board. I'm going to go ahead and make this a static defense and just try that this first time. So basically within this perimeter, I have like half of the building hexes. So basically I am setting it up so that the native tribesmen have to come and clear us out, basically. Yep. So it's a static defense. It's a hedgehog defense, continuous perimeter, and we'll see. I am going to review here, and I didn't do this before, is what the actual defensive benefits of the terrain I've chosen here. So a building, oh yeah. So these buildings are significant in terms of fire defense column shifts 4. That's funny how they don't. That's -4. That's not really clear, is it? Anyways, I think it's -4, in which case that's nice and significant. Where are the improved positions? Funny that the improved position isn't listed on that. But I guess they consider it something different. So what is an improved position? What is it? Okay, so any units stacked in the same hex as an IP benefit in combat as follows. When the target of a fire combat, they receive a -2 column shift. Okay. In addition to all of their modifiers. In melee combat, the defender receives a ×3 multiplier, while the attacker receives a ×1.5 multiplier. I find this interesting, but I don't have a problem with it. This game, I think, I'm not positive, but I think this game has a slightly unusual take on these things. So here are your melee modifiers. So like, if you imagine an attacker going into rocky terrain, the attacker goes into rocky terrain and still gets a 1.5 modifier, while the defender gets a ×2 modifier. Similarly for scrub. Boy, that's some serious scrub there. It's not light scrub, but and also, I find this interesting, right? So the hill hex side, the attacker gets ×2 as well as the defender getting ×3. Again, I'm not sure I have a problem with it. So the stream, for example, you finally have the attackers halved, but the defenders doubled. This is kind of, I guess, what I would expect as typical. But these ones up here look different. And again, I'm not saying I have a problem with it. I want to see it in practice. I haven't always, this type of arrangement has not in all cases sat well with me. Anyways, I'm getting too abstract. I'm getting too abstract here, but I want to see that in practice. I find that interesting, the way they do that. And again, I'm not sure I have a problem with it. Maybe I will. We'll see. So, yeah, strong hedgehog defense, incorporating the improved positions and buildings, as well as the heights as well. But I couldn't have a defense that. Well, no, I chose to not have just a defense aligned along the slopes. Yeah. The native tribesmen are going to go first. It's real basic, actually very familiar sequence of play here. Rally, it's not going to apply to the first turn. British volley fire, it's not going to apply on the first turn. Movement phase, so the native tribesmen are going to move. By the way, even though you have these different movement points, for us, we only have infantry and leaders in this game. So it's just going to be 7 points for the infantry and 12 for leaders by themselves. So the leaders are going to stay with their units. So all these forces are just moving 7. And actually, the British aren't really moving. So it's the native tribesmen are going to move 7 movement points per turn here until we get into some combat. Then you have defensive fire, followed by offensive fire, defensive fire, offensive fire, melee. Oh, and that's it. And then you have a repeat of the other player's turn. Oh no, this is important. No, that is it. But the British volley fire is in both player turns. That was not as clear as I intended. Okay, so the native tribesmen have moved for their first movement phase. There are some ambiguities with the terrain. This is a level 2 slope, but I don't see where this level 2 slope has its corresponding level 1 slope. There's level 1 slope here, level 1 slope there. There's no level 1 slope around it. Around the 2 here, level 2. Level 3 slope, level 2 slope, level 1 slope. Unclear, ambiguous. Coming through here, I wasn't sure how to. I mean, do the trails negate costs of all other terrain? Period, no matter what, as long as you follow it. Do I pay for going up and down slopes? Yeah, but you know, I'm going to push on. I see some unclear parts. But anyways, what I was going to say before I end this video is that basically this I have to remember, look, here are the rules. These are not, I don't think these are meant to be very complicated rules at all. As a matter of fact, I think they're meant to be fairly, well, straightforward, if not simple. So, given that, what am I looking at? Movement, I don't see anything unusual. Actually, I don't see anything unusual about movement at all. Okay, there is a road and trail movement section. Both sides may use the roads and trails on the maps to speed up movement. Unit which moves from one road or trail directly to adjacent by a road or trail expends only the 1/2 or 1. Okay, regardless of other terrain. So I figured it would take you through like the rocky terrain by route, but I guess roads and trails also negate terrain elevation. That, I mean, I accept that from the rules. That's not. That's yeah, no. That, all I'll say is that's a simplification. I see a lot of simplifications here actually, but I accept them. I accept the simplifications. Yeah. What more can I say? So. Opportunity fire looks perfectly straightforward, except that opportunity fires looks like it's only at adjacent targets. Now it's as many times as you have eligible targets, as many units as can legally fire with opportunity fire during movement. It's just only adjacent. So yeah, if a British unit moved adjacent, this would opportunity fire. Moves here, opportunity fire again. Moves here, opportunity fire again, and so on and so forth. Other than that, opportunity fire looks very straightforward. Stacking, no more than 3 units. Only at the end of a movement phase, because I did move a few of my stacks through other ones. Yeah, no more than 3 combat units. Mounted cavalry is an exception. Okay. Fire combat, I don't see anything unusual other than, total your fire factors. You must total your fire factors. That's straightforward. Everything is straightforward. Gatling guns are a little different. Hey, you can divide up your fire factors. That's great. Gatling guns. Line of sight. Now, I'm not sure about line of sight. Line of sight's the first place where I'm going to stop and say, I'm going to have to double check how line of sight's done in this game. Melee looks straightforward. British volley fire, it is kind of what you would expect, I think. You need to have a leader in proximity. You need to be on line of some sort. You're gonna have a movement penalty, as you would expect. Melee doesn't look unusual at all. You're meleeing adjacent. Yeah. Morale. I'm still going to go, I think I said in an earlier video, or earlier at some point, I said I was going to go with the routed or panicked. So here's the good side with a morale value in the lower right of 7. I said that on the back side, the routed side or panicked side, I guess they're supposed to be exactly the same. I was going to take the printed morale -1. I still don't have any evidence whatsoever that that's what was intended, but I'm going to play that way. At least for now, unless I see a problem with that. Morale, leaders, I don't see anything unusual with leaders. Again, the Gatling guns, they're not even in this scenario yet, but basically they can divide up their fire power into multiple hexes. Wagon sappers, sepoy disloyalty, I like that. The sepoy can actually go over to the other side. And then special ambush setup rules. So really that's it. Line of sight matters because we have our first unit that might be coming into view of the British, who are just off the screen. Right there, actually, just off the screen is the first British unit. So we need to hit line of supply before we get too much further.